Hello and welcome to this round 8 of Grand Prix Brussels. We can see each of these players at 5 and 2. They're going to have to win this round if they're going to make it through to day 2. Heiko Lehnert, he's on Still Leaf Stumpy and up against Andrea Mengucci on Turbo Fog. The number 12 next to Mengucci's name, signifying he's the 12th ranked player in the world right now. And I think that this has to be one of the best matchups for Turbo Fog against a deck that is solely looking at winning through the red zone.
Well, I'm going to have to correct you here, because this version of green is not the best matchup for Turbo Fog.
Yeah, I see a lot of blue sources already, and that a little unusual for the Steel Leaf decks.
While Mono Green Stumpy, Steel Leaf Stumpy with only green or black is a better than average matchup. The version with blue is actually pretty hard to beat, because it's single negate on the attack step for your Fog means game over. So I wouldn't go as far as saying it's the good matchup.
All right, well, we'll find out soon enough. Seventh the Conduit, the first play from Heiko Lehnert. A Gift of Paradise from Andrea Mengucci. Ronus the Indomitable, though, coming down for Lehnert here. And that's kind of one of the ways that he really starts to explode out in terms of creatures. From there, getting up to Golta Primal Hunger doesn't seem like too big a stretch. Meanwhile, Andrea Mengucci, he continues to develop his mana base with another copy of Gift of Paradise and follows that up with another Charter Course.
Yeah, a fourth land into Teferi would have been a little better than just missing the fourth land drop.
Yeah, I mean, Gift of Paradise
kind of makes up for it.
It's a bit like hitting a land drop. You gain that life. Where Gift of Paradise gets really exciting is when you've got that interaction with Teferi as well. But Still Leaf Champion after Ronus means that Ronus can attack. Attacks for 7 here. And in spite of the life that has been gained by Andrea Mengucci, life total's now looking pretty close.
Yeah.
Though Teferi might have something to say about how this game is going to go from here on out. There's already 2 copies of Gift of Paradise. That's a lot of mana available in subsequent turns. We'll see what Andrea Mengucci can do with it.
Still no mana. Still no fourth land from Andrea. And upkeep.
This is
Fog.
where we like seeing these fog effects from the Turbo Fog list.
Also saves a lot of time, because your opponent might think, oh, should I attack Teferi? Is there a reason? There's usually no reason not to attack Teferi, but just in case, you save some time. You just fog during upkeep and just move on with your life.
Yeah, we say fog. In this case, it was a Root Snare, but I mean they all kind of work roughly the same way. Llanowar Elves and Golta Primal Hunger coming down for Lehnert. So we're in a straightforward situation now where each and every attack step from now on, Heiko Lehnert has lethal damage available to him. So in many respects, he doesn't really need to play any more creatures. He just needs to focus on hoping to try and get through that one big attack.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason to attack Teferi as well. There's another fog in the format that does not save Planeswalkers, and that's Festivities of... I'm not sure exactly the name. I don't remember the name of it. It's the Kaladesh one.
As things stand, Hazer Pollen and Root Snare, kind of the main ones that we see in Turbo Fog.
No, but this one is not in the...
Yeah.
This is not in Turbo. But just in case,
yeah,
they would try to attack Teferi because, there's another fog out there. But no, this just... Upkeep is the best way to do it.
All right, so Teferi gradually ticking up here. Search for Azcanta being in the mix as well. Soon that will transform into Azcanta the Sunken Ruin. Once you have Azcanta the Sunken Ruin in play with Teferi, it becomes much, much easier to dig for more fog effects or indeed more copies of Nexus of Fate. But right now, for Andrea Mengucci, he just needs to find one of those 2, or else he could be in a lot of trouble. He reveals a Nexus of Fate, and from here on out, things get a lot more straightforward. Floats 2 mana, untaps 2 lands.
6/7, Nexus of Fate. Commencement of Festivities is the card I was looking for.
Commencement of Festivities. Not in this list because it's simply a bit of a worse fog effect than the other ones available, but in principle there are lots of fog effects available, and one of the nice things about this version of Turbo Fog, it doesn't actually need to run as many fogs as some of those lists in the past might have.
So it's pretty interesting here. Andrea mills a fog with Search for Azcanta, meaning that I think he has the game locked here, because otherwise there's no reason to pass on the fog here. Because fog is, in game 1 against green, it's like a time walk.
Absolutely.
So if you mill one of your fogs, I probably have more fogs or more Nexus of Fates in hand.
And in
that's
this case,
probably
it looks like
what's
it's a Nexus.
happening. Yeah. If he doesn't need the fog, then he probably wins. So we're probably gonna see him going through the motions, and I don't expect him to make any mistake with the deck because, well, he was around when we were testing the deck, and he's also we're on the same team, and we have this this Facebook group where we talk about the strategy and everything you have to know about the deck, and we have a topic that with all the little tricks.
Oh, nice.
Like with everything you have to know about it, how to play and what to not miss, and he was actively asking for tips. So there's a whole bunch of little things to know about when to play Nexus, what to do with your planeswalkers, when to activate them. It's about I don't know, maybe 15, 20 little tricks to know about.
Nice. And when you add them all up, they do represent a little bit of extra win percentage. So here we see Teferi Ultimate, get the emblem, cast a new Teferi, and I think that there's still enough going on here that we're going to see still more action from Mengucci.
Oh, he doesn't have a fog?
But he has got rid of Golta Primal Hunger this turn. So in terms of the amount of damage available to Heiko this coming turn, I think that he is still okay.
Alright, there's an emblem on Teferi, so still should be fine. Yeah, Glimmer for 2 more exile effects and a fog there as well.
And lo and behold, the board of Steel Leaf Stumpy suddenly looking a little bit sad.
Yeah, Heiko could have scooped like at the point he used the emblem, but that's alright. We don't
mind
blame
seeing
him for that.
an extra turn or so of play.
Yeah, it's only 7 minutes into the round, so we've seen much longer game ones.
Oh, absolutely. This is a format where I think that it's interesting to me watching Andrea play this Turbo Fog list compared to some of the players that we saw early on in the day who maybe haven't had the benefit of the testing groups, top tips list, etc. That Mengucci there playing pretty briskly, getting through his game good and quick, and giving himself maximum opportunity to make sure that this game is not going to be decided by the clock. It's going to be decided by his play or indeed his opponents.
So now life gets a lot harder for Andrea because, well, there are a lot of counters in Heiko's list. There are 6 counter spells.
Wow.
Negates we know about, and there's another one that's actually really good in this matchup. It's Admiral's Order.
Interesting. Not one that you see so terribly often.
So the thing is, in theory, it would be great because it says when you attack, you can counter for 1 blue mana. Is that the exact text?
I believe so,
It's
yes.
raid. It's 2 blue and 1. Counter target spell. Raid. You can pay only 1 blue. Is that right?
I believe so, yeah. That sounds about right.
So against an average player, that would be good because average players play fogs during the attack step, and therefore it only costs 1 blue. However, here you would play during upkeep, so it wouldn't work as well.
I mean, I guess that on the turns where you're attacking that would force a fog, there's nothing better that you can be doing with your mana than countering a fog.
You need
right?
2 blue. It's good against Settle the Wreckage. It's not. It's good against unprepared fog players.
Andrea Mengucci is not an unprepared fog player.
No, we've seen him playing fog during upkeep, so he's not gonna let Heiko play his Admiral's Order for 1 mana.
Makes sense to me. So, as things stand, if you're Mengucci, you know that there's counter magic. How much does that change your sequencing or how you go about trying to win the game?
I don't think it does anything. I don't think if they have it, they have it. You can't against Stumpy. You can't play Teferi, play Fog, and have a counter backup. This is just not possible. Stumpy puts too much pressure on you. You have to start fogging on turn 4 or 5 because every attack is 20. It's 15 or 20 damage. So you have to fog, and you can't afford to wait an extra turn.
Interesting.
So you kind of hope they either don't have it, or they just flood with them. They only have it and they have no pressure, which is something that happens because they usually cut some threats.
I mean, they have to. Their deck's almost entirely threats in game 1.
Yeah, well, except that Heiko has Cartouche of Knowledge, which is not very good in this matchup. So this one is an easy sideboard out.
All right, so going into game 2 here. Let's see whether or not they can keep their opening 7s. And one of the things that I kind of like about the Turbo Fog list is its mulligan decisions seem fairly straightforward. Essentially, you just need to get yourself with a reasonable mix of land, and everything else works together fairly well. Obviously, you don't want to be flooded on your 7-drop time warps, but there's only 4 of them, so that's not going to happen too often. Meanwhile, Heiko here, he's having to take a mulligan, and I guess that's partly because he knows that the variance between the good hands and the bad hands is pretty big for him.
Also, if you had a glimpse at his hand, he had negate, so it's like the best card from your sideboard, but it's only good if you have creatures in play. So drawing your, I don't know if he had lands, but imagine a hand with like 3 lands, 2 negates, and maybe a Ronas and a Galta.
Yeah, that's a rough old hand.
Yeah, that's not great.
Okay, Heiko on the play
It's
here.
another hand with
Can
a lot
he
of
keep it 7?
It's another hand with
6
a lot,
rather.
a lot of blue cards.
Well, we'll find out how this plays for him soon enough. At least he's got the blue mana to be able to cast those blue cards. You can see here, Mengucci moving at a reasonable pace. He just wants to get out of the spot he's found himself in, having to play the last round, hoping to get the win. Turn 2 Search for Azcanta meets in the gates from Heiko.
Who's playing control here?
Search for Azcanta definitely makes life a lot easier for the Turbo Fog lists, and the mana base working out just fine for Heiko. Gets the Steel Leaf Champion on the battlefield on turn 3. Gift of Paradise there on the other side of things for Mengucci. Adds an extra turn to the clock that would be needed for Steel Leaf Champion to make this all work. And Servant of the Conduit, the follow-up.
We're going to see Teferi here. The mulligans don't actually hurt the Stumpy player that much, because they don't need that many threats on the board to actually threaten lethal. 7 damage is probably good enough.
So I'll anticipate they're coming off the 1 land, Gift of Paradise, meaning that 1 land tapping to produce enough mana for Anticipate. And also a cycle here. So Mengucci doing a great job of digging through his deck. Plenty of card drawing in this list. On 11 life, though, it's not going to be long before he starts to need those fog effects simply to stay alive. So here comes Khan. And another negate here coming from Heiko Lehnert.
Yeah, Karn is not actually... The negate is a little... I don't think it was necessary. Karn is not doing that much.
Yeah, I mean, we know that while there is counter magic available to Heiko, he's not got unlimited counter magic, though I do see a few more blue spells in hand. Maybe this is him being counter flooded and just feeling like he might as well fire it off all over the place.
Sure.
Mengucci's on 4 here, so he's not got a lot of space to work with. Passes the turn. I think he's got a couple of fog effects in hand here, and plays the upkeep fog. That meaning, as you mentioned earlier, there was going to be that Admiral's Order having to be played early on, and a second fog effect, meaning that, yeah, no attacks at all from Heiko, no point there.
See, there's no reason to have negates in your deck, because, well, now the fog is exactly the same thing. But now he needs a 3rd fog, and probably Teferi here to just come back in this game. But if that's the case, he's in okay shape.
Yeah, Admiral's Order, at worst, a cancel. At best, one of the better counter spells you're going to find in this day and age.
Yeah, that's... it's going to be hard.
All right.
Yep.
35 minutes left, and we're already on to game 3. Just enough disruption there from Heiko Lehnert to be able to get things going. And look at the big old smile on his face there. Very pleased with how that game went. And rightly so. Not that often you get to take games off the number 12 ranked player in the world. Andrea Mengucci is going to have to rally back. He's going to be on the play in this final game. How big a factor is play draw likely to be in this matchup?
Ah, that's huge. Having to not be on the back pedal, like right away, facing Steel Leaf Champion. If Steel Leaf Champion starts attacking on turn 4, or on turn 3, that's a very, very fast clock, and you have to Fog right away. If it's on turn 3, but you're on the play, that's still you have some wiggle room.
I mean, I guess that in a deck that's all about getting extra turns, by going first, you've immediately got yourself an extra turn.
Pretty much, yeah.
So even though Andrea Mengucci's deck is not about aggressively attacking your opponent's life total, being on the play means that at least your opponent is that much slower.
Right. You give them the opportunity to, have another card, have a negate, for example. But yeah, that's fine. And Heiko's deck has 12 ways to have access to blue mana. Usually green decks don't really like to play Ether Hub. Ether Hub's not great in
when you've got lots of decks that are hungry for coloured mana, Ether Hub you can feel the pinch on it. But Servant of the Conduit as well, also giving a potential access to blue mana if needed.
Yeah, Servant is a card that's not doing that much in the deck. It's good for the sideboard cards. It's good to have the extra blue mana to make sure you can cast your negates. But in general, you're not very happy to play Servant against red and against other decks. Like a 2/2/4/2 is not really what you want to do. You want to play Heart of Kiran, you want to play other stuff, but
I mean, it seems to be working for Heiko, passing fair today so far. He's forced a game 3 here and just a game away from locking up his place in day 2. All right, 7 cards. Will there be enough for each of these players? Seems like it. No turn 1 land else here for Leonard.
ooh.
And Search for Azcanta comes down before any counter magic can come from Heiko, who on his turn 2, again for the 3rd game in a row, has access to Servant of the Conduit nice and early.
It's better. It's not as good as turn 1 Llanowar Elf, so.
Charter Course, not good enough for Andrea Mengucci. He continues to
No gift.
draw nothing at all on turn 3 for him here.
Oh, we have a Supreme Will on Andrea's side. That would be good to counter a champion here.
Looks like it's going to hit.
That's much better than Time Walk here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the 2 damage that he's taking from a Servant of the Conduit, not really enough to be worth worrying about. But Supreme Will, when it slows things down by a turn, essentially almost everything that we call this Turbo Fog, it's really kind of pumping the brakes on the game as much as it can, trying to make it so that as little happens per turn as possible.
Wow, we're going to have a next turn Lyra.
That would be nice. A bit of a pivot from Andrea Mengucci's side of things if we see him attacking in the air with a big creature. But here comes a threat that's going to be a little bit fiddly for Andrea Mengucci. Vinemare, with its hexproof coming down, represents quite a large amount of damage, though the numbers do stack up fairly nicely for Lyra Dawnbringer if that's what he chooses to play here.
And Heiko does not have a way to deal with the Angel. He has 2 Nature's Ways in the sideboard, and I doubt he brought them in.
Yeah, I mean, Blossoming Defense would mean that he was a little bit better if he could layer them up, but 2 Blossoming Defense after sideboard, is that really the way that he's going to do this? I wouldn't imagine so. Here comes Thrashing Bronstone from Leonard.
And no attacks. Andrea must feel really good right now.
Yeah, absolutely. He's deployed a sideboard plan that looks to have stymied Heiko Leonard's plan.
Heiko should have destroyed the Search. Search is the only target for the only real target for the Brontodon.
Yeah, I can't honestly see him attacking with that Bronstone in this board as things stand. Negate for Teferi.
That one was.
Yeah, that one had to happen, and that the best reason for not using the Brontodon.
So do you attack here? The thing is, you don't want your opponent to have access to Galta. So you want to close the game as fast as possible, especially if your plan is only to gain 5 every turn with Lyra.
Yeah, this is probably the most interesting of the races that we've seen so far of all 3 games in our round 8 here. Certainly Conduit coming along, number 2.
It's only 10 damage. Casual attacking for 10. Upkeep. Are we going to see cycling here. No. Cycling would have allowed Search for Scanta to flip right away.
Though I guess that while there's one mana up, there's the potential that even if it was going to trigger, it would be getting destroyed here.
I mean, if Andrea would have cycled before, yeah, it could have.
I mean, this looks to be a race that Andrea Mengucci's all right with running here.
Especially with fogs.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Why would you do it end of turn? At this point, you can attack. You have so much mana. You're likely to run into a fog, but why would you destroy it at this time?
Yeah, 19 life. It's going to be difficult to get rid of all of that in this attack, but an extra 3/4 Bronzedon may have helped at least.
Unless you plan to use that mana, but I don't know how much mana you can use. Yeah, he just lost 3 damage here.
The life total's 10 apiece right now, but Lyra Dawnbringer will definitely help with that.
I mean, if he was worried about the extra mana, he could have just not attacked with the Servant.
Mm-hmm. So 10-10 turns into 5-15, the joy of lifelink there. Another search for Azcanta and plenty of mana up. On the face of things here, there's still a chance for Heiko Lehnert, but here we see another upkeep fog. There is a negate for that one.
Oh, he's 1 mana away from winning. I think there's 15 damage here. If he plays the Oasis. If he activates the Oasis. So it's 5, 8, 10, 12. And Andrea's on 15.
Wow.
Len would
The
win the game
activation
here.
of that Thrashing Bronzedon might be the difference here.
Oh, no. No, he would still... He would... Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, yeah.
And we still don't know whether or not...
So 8... 11... 13. No, there would have been only 1 more damage. So he's missing 2 damage.
Very
That
close
was a
game.
close one. That was a very close game.
You can see a little smile and a shake of the head there from Andrea Mengucci. He's done the math as well, and there was a Steel Leaf Stompy deck in the room that had the tools to potentially derail Turbo Fog. In that particular instance, it didn't get there, but it was very close. You see these guys having a little smile. Lehnert showing exactly how he'd sideboarded. Look at all this counter magic, I said. But ultimately, all the counter magic in the world doesn't help if you either don't draw it or if your opponent has had a nice sideboard pivot, it must be said, from Andrea Mengucci. The Lyra's not something that I would expect to see in every Turbo Fog list sideboard, but they seem pretty effective.
Yeah, we discussed it, and I guess that's actually you're only out against Stumpy with blue.
All right, so at the end of that match, we are going to get a chance to see a little bit more from one of our other tables. Here it's Jörg van Kadvik that's on Steel Leaf Stompy, but he's up against a man that we saw in our feature match area in round 2, Don van Ravensway. He is on Mono Blue Storm, and he's facing down a pretty impressive collection of creatures here. Yes, that Steel Leaf has got an
Ether Meltdown
on it, so -4 power. Still gets to attack him for 1, though, even in spite of all that. So 5 points a turn coming through at the moment. And aside from that, Don currently doesn't have anything going on.
An interesting interaction between these two decks. When Ether Meltdown enchants, for example, a Scrounger, its power is -1, 2. And usually it doesn't really matter. When you get attacked by -1, 2, you don't gain life. You just take 0 damage. However, it's relevant when you want to cast a Galta.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have a -1 among your creatures, well, that counts.
Yeah, your total power
You need 13. 13 -1 to pay for 2. Only paid for 2.
So Psy Master Thopterus has come down now for Don. That a great way of him getting his board good and wide. And a Duress reveals, well, an embarrassment of riches here. Prophetic Prison, Aetherflux Reservoir, Inspiring Statuary, Renegade Map, Commit to Memory, and Baral's Expertise. All of those things combined are pretty much everything that Don could hope for, assuming he's got time to deploy them. But one of them is going to go away because each and every one of those cards is a fair game target for this Duress.
This is a pretty good hand. If York does not have blossoming defense, this is exactly what you want to beat mono green.
Now, what's the relevance specifically of blossoming defense against this hand?
So they would keep one of York's creature in play against Baral's expertise. But since he discarded Baral's expertise, then that means he probably doesn't have one. Or his hand cannot beat it.
So it seems likely that this next turn for Don is going to be a big one. He has access to most of the things that he could reasonably want in terms of going off. He's already got Sai, Master Thopterist in play. And at 11 life, he shouldn't need to throw Sai under any buses here in order to be able to survive into his turn.
Yeah, he can just chump with Thopter.
I mean, on 11 life, he may not even need to worry about that.
All right. Well, he may have more information than us. Maybe he blocked last turn and nothing happened.
Yeah, the block feels a tiny bit
no,
risky to me.
No, he played this turn, I think. We saw that he played it this turn. So it could be risky, but his hand is so good.
Yeah, I mean, this next turn ought to be a great turn for the mono blue list. Start off by getting the Inspiring Statuary down, and then you've got a lot of spells that you're going to be able to cast on the cheap. And by on the cheap, I mean we've got all these artifacts that can improvise, and every time we're casting artifacts, we're getting still more artifacts. Renegade map coming into play tap. That one won't help with the Inspiring Statuary.
So now he can just block for almost for free because he has another Sai in hand.
Yeah, Steel Leaf Champion, normally the card that's a little bit worrying for this deck in this current incarnation, because though all those Thopters, Sai cannot block Steel Leaf Champion, but the only Steel Leaf Champion that's in play right now only has 1 power, so it's really not nibbling away at Don's life total at a speed that he needs to worry about.
But Jorg has drawn so many lands. I think he has 1 more in hand, and that's not how you beat Storm. Well, it's not how you beat any deck, but
no,
especially not Storm.
All right, so here's
Wow.
Galta.
Pay 8 mana for Galta. It's probably the most expensive Galta we've seen the whole weekend.
And getting committed.
No, second. Yep.
There we go. There's been a few different cards in the history of Magic that put things at varying different heights down in the library, and it is easy to get them mixed up. Your ousts
And,
of this
all
world,
of them,
etc.
all of them are like most of them are in this format. Commit, the Fairy, Approach of the Second Sun.
Yeah, I think Oust and
Oust is third.
Otherworldly Journey. Is Otherworldly Journey there's
No.
one that's X, put things X down.
Oh. Now, Otherworldly Journey is a
Yes.
Kamigawa spell, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, what was this card? Long-term plans.
Yes.
You search for a card, you put it third from the top.
As things stand, though, Don Van Ravenwij's plan right now is to try and continue to flood the board here. Aetherflux Reservoir, potentially meaning that he's going to get to go off this turn.
If it's not going off, he will just be making more tokens, getting some life, and stabilizing at maybe 12 or 13.
Yeah, I mean, this is a post-sideboard game, so there is the potential that you can have some nice options to make life more difficult. I mean, if he'd had a Manglehorn in this game,
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
Manglehorn is such a beating for Mono Blue Storm. I played Storm at Nationals.
Yeah?
In my last round, I played against double Manglehorn and Duress, and that was a nightmare. Like, I'm never gonna play this deck again.
Yeah, it's the kind of sideboard hate that feels like it's from a different era. Because back in the early days of Magic, there were sideboard cards that were so just utterly crushing that they didn't feel remotely fair. And Manglehorn against Mono Blue Storm, because of how good it is against artifacts, very powerful indeed. As things stand, though, here, right now, you're just having to look on as Don gains life, gets to attack in for a little bit with Thopters. He's got still more Thopters to block with, just getting it all done.
He's getting aggressive. He's just attacking with Thopters. There might be no real reason to attack with the Thopters, I mean.
I mean,
why not? But
there's only 20 minutes left on the round, and Don is currently down a game, so it may be that he's slightly feeling the pressure of the clock here.
sure.
But I agree, there's not much reason. All right, still leave champion. That definitely helps.
Well,
We found a creature that's unblockable.
well, if you wanted a reason, that's a reason. Because he doesn't, like, he might not have that many ways to deal with a champion and the Galta next turn. So never mind my comment, attacking was good.
Okay, Ornithopter comes along. That's 2 creatures and a life.
I mean, the chances that he wins with the damage is low, but could be relevant. I mean, he's not racing a Galta, for example.
Very few things are. Looks like Memory
Here we
is
go.
getting cast with Aftermath from the graveyard here. Conveniently, quite a lot of artifacts to mean that only 2 islands having to be tapped for it. Let's shuffle in some graveyards, draw 7 new cards. This feels like it ought to be enough here. Also gaining 2.
This feels more like a time spiral than a time twister. It's
Yeah,
so
when you're only
cheap.
tapping 2 lands
It's
for
so,
it.
it's so cheap.
And yeah, York drawing 7 cards. I can't imagine he's going to have that much that can disrupt Don on his own turn. And whether or not York is going to get to untap on his, still somewhat in the balance here.
Yeah, good thing in the feature match. I'm gonna ask that for tomorrow to have the storm counter. No, I'm serious because it helps. It helps keep track.
We're currently at Storm 2. I'm going to keep track.
All
for
right,
you
we
there.
have Tim the storm counter.
If we get to above 10, I might have to take my shoes and socks off.
Oh man, if you were a magic card, you would be Tim the storm counter.
I can dig it. That sounds like a cool card name. All right, so
Exclusion mage.
I kind of like it.
It's a good way to deal with some creatures. All right, here comes the
Now,
defense.
for the purposes of Aetherflux Reservoir, I'm only counting Storm on Don's side of the table.
That's fine. Or maybe you can use your feet to use the actual storm counter.
All right,
Storm count and your hands for Don personal storm counter.
very well. We'll figure something out. He's currently just cast his 4th spell of the turn.
And I can see you took off your shoes, so that's fine.
Yep. We're all friends here. And there's our 5th spell of the turn in Prophetic Prism. So the good thing about going off with this Aetherflux Reservoir deck is that even if you don't win the game all in one big turn, you gain so much life, you gain so much board presence thanks to Sai, that failing to go off doesn't really feel like failing in quite the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Don just gets to attack in here with 5 Thopters. And if he passes the turn here,
Well, nothing really happened.
he gained a bunch of life. He put himself in a much safer situation than he was in at the start of the turn, so no harm, no foul.
Yeah, next turn he gets to untap with 8 mana. And he can draw cards from Sai. He can draw a bunch of stuff, so I don't think he's I think he's in a pretty good shape here.
Yeah, I mean, this looks like a Vine Mare coming down to begin with. All these very worthy cards in and of themselves, but struggling to stay in the race here.
As long as the creature can be blocked by Thopters, it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, if you're untapped and cast 2 or 3 Steel Leaf Champions, that would get kind of interesting. That's not the world that we live in, though. Exclusion Mage jumping in the way of a Scrap Heap Scrounger here. They'll both hit the graveyard.
So he needs 8 spell to go off this turn, I think.
Something of that stripe, certainly. Thrashing Brontodon,
Ouch.
getting Metallic Rebuked.
But didn't he was the elf cast this turn?
Metallic Rebuke is 3, though, right?
Oh no! Wow, he had 3 mana.
I thought he
Well,
just
it
said
doesn't matter. Like if he
Yeah.
pays the 3 mana,
then he still
they-
can't use it that
then he
turn.
can't use it this turn. Yeah. Well, still, it's still
I
better.
can't help but wonder whether or not he'd have been better off starting with the Brontodon rather than the Vine Mare there, just so
Yeah.
that his more important threat gets to Like taking out an Inspiring Statuary or an Aetherflux Reservoir right now would make a big difference.
And he didn't he didn't gain the life from the reservoir of the Metallic Rebuke.
I don't believe so.
This deck. You will miss triggers.
Yes.
Like this is not. Maybe he did not, but in the long run, in a 14 round tournament, you will miss some triggers. It is a fact. If you don't, you're extremely good at this game. There are so many things you have to think of, and sometimes it's irrelevant. Most of the time, it's irrelevant, but in the end, you will have some.
So we've seen a few spells this turn. We're on our 4th spell of the turn already. Khan has already been cast to make one of the larger constructs you're ever going to see.
Galta is breakfast at this stage.
And Jorg says, I've seen enough. Let's go on to game 3. And we're going to get a chance to do the very same with these guys. We are live here. The way that things going in this very last round of day 1 here at Grand Prix Brussels is we're bringing you as much live magic as we can. These players battling it out to see who can make it into day 2. Each of them at 5 and 2, so they need this last win to be able to play on Sunday. And at 1 and 1, they're going to have to leave it to this very last game of the series in order to potentially lock it up.
So being on the play for Mono Green is obviously very important, but the Steel Leaf Champion on turn 2.
I mean, Steel Leaf Champion is gigantic in this matchup. I don't even know whether or not there's the potential for Manglehorns in this particular matchup, whether or not they're in the sideboard or not.
But there's Exclusion Mage could help against these draws, but still, if there's a Steel Leaf Champion on turn 2 from Jorg, and Don has a turn 3 Exclusion Mage, there's still room for a Blossoming Defense.
Yes. Yeah, the Steel Leaf Champion.
It's MVP in this match.
The ability on it, often not that relevant. In this matchup, incredibly relevant. And we get a chance to see opening hands here. Looks like Don's got a mix of lands and spells that ought to be good enough. Anytime that you've got a list like this that's trying to play a lot of spells, it really hurts to have to go down to 6 or even 5.
Yeah, mulliganing with this deck is horrible. Mulliganing with Storm is pretty tough.
Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Steel Leaf Stumpy, it's taking a mulligan, and that's not necessarily quite as damning. Obviously, you would love to keep on 7, but if you have a hand that is 2 Forest, Lamorel, Steel Leaf Champion, and something, that's already a pretty great draw, and you don't need for the other cards to even be anything all that special. All right, down to 6. Let's see how these look. Both these players haven't gone for fetching match purple sleeves.
Well, double duress and no black. Oh, is there black mana in there? No, this
wasn't quite clear there initially what was going
on.
on.
Oh wow, this hand is horrendous.
Yeah, it's
double duress, no black mana, blossoming defense, Vine Mare.
Even taking damage off this Hashep Oasis potentially. This could be a pretty rough set of draws. I mean, in terms of how easily a mono blue Storm deck can punish these draws, what's its typical turn that it's looking to close games out?
The other card was a Steel Leaf Champion. That makes it a little better.
Yeah, 2 green sources and a Steel Leaf Champion. Yeah, we're getting somewhere with this. With Inventor's Fair, there'll be a small amount of life gain for Don. That might buy him an extra turn.
Yeah, no Ornithopter here. I would have played the Ornithopter just to gain a life return. That could be relevant later in the game.
You're just having to replay his Steel Leaf Champion.
I mean, he doesn't have a Sai, he doesn't have a Reservoir, and he has other stuff to play.
I mean, I guess that if he knew that he was going to be cracking this map this turn anyway, then it's a relatively small difference. But
that would have been 2 life already. So yeah, 2 life is relevant when you're facing 5 power.
Yeah, and also when your way of winning the game involves ending up with lots of life. At least one of your ways of winning the game, should I say.
And when you have the
Metal Spinner's puzzle knot.
Yeah.
All right, so now we have Sai. Now Don looks like a genius for holding on to his 0 mana spells a little longer. And Ether Meltdown, ideal to stick on a Steel Leaf Champion. Steel Leaf Champion, the card that you're most afraid of, and one that's only attacking for 1. Well, it's barely attacking at all.
I mean, it's only 1 Thopter. It's not like it's... The 1 extra Thopter is probably not going to be as relevant as the 2 or now 3 extra life you would have got. I don't think that's going to be any relevant, given that Yorg's hand is absolute blank seas, just to quote Riley.
A couple of points coming in here from that Exclusion Mage. It gets into the red zone, feeling like all kinds of beatdown, which is somewhat bizarre considering what it's up against. On the other side of things, we also have Sai coming along, and with a Renegade map, that means a Thopter. The beatdown team gradually assembling, and here's an Ornithopter bringing a regular Thopter along with it. Apparently Orni means you get less power, but a little bit more toughness. That's what we're learning here.
No, Orni is that means bird, right? In Latin.
These birds are not pecking away in the same way that regular Thopters are, though, are
no,
they?
it's a bird Thopter.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'll allow it.
Well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you. Well, just a piece of culture for you.
Inspiring Statuary picked up there by Don Ravensway. Gets him yet another Thopter.
How do these duress taste like?
Yeah,
it's kind of sticking to the fingers. It's like a little greasy.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. It's not even abundantly clear to me now that a duress is even going to be that good at this stage in the game. Even if suddenly...
Well, it's pretty clear to me it's not going to do anything.
I mean, we love the Ice Age forests, we do. The fact that they're casting this Vine Mare, even better, but had there been a swamp or a black source of some description on the first turn or so, I mean, I guess that given you kept a hand with Steel Leaf Champion as well, that put you in a really rough spot in terms of what lands you're even hoping to draw.
Now, your good draws are very good, your bad draws are horrendous. That's what I think about the green decks. And that's what we saw against Andrea as well. Like, to afford the blue mana, you need to play Servant, you need to play 12 dual lands, and sometimes you have the blue mana, and you cast Negate, and it's not enough. In the version with black, you usually don't run the Servant, and you don't run Ether Hub, so you have only like 8 sources of black, so it's usually not great to cast your duress.
Yeah, if you're Van Ravensway here, then you probably feel fairly good about how this game's shaping up. I mean, he doesn't realise that there's a bunch of duresses just sat in hand for his opponent, but the amount of offense that's been offered thus far on the other side of the table, comparatively low.
And when your opponent starts not bouncing your permanents, you know it's a bad sign. It's a bad sign.
I see what you did there. The Master Thopterist stepping in. The hits keeping on coming here for Van Ravensway, continuing to make more Thopters, draw more cards. He's pretty close to... If he's attacking for 4 this turn, he's pretty close to attacking for lethal very soon here. I like the fact that the addition of Sai to the mono blue storm lists means that they don't have to rely on either Karn tokens or Aetherflux Reservoir always being enough. It felt to me like it wasn't quite a real deck until the addition of Core Set 2019. Vine Moore coming along here. Vine Mare, sorry. Big Horsies are bound, but they're also bound to the ground, so Air Force here on the other side of things with Don Ravensway ought to be able to enough to take this. Another Inspiring Statuary there. And signalling that Don doesn't have too much action left in hand. Paying 3 for the second copy of the Statuary, not super relevant.
Yeah, there's no coming back from the aerial assault.
Yeah, unclear what it is that you can even draw here to make this game last a whole lot longer.
Hurricane for 1.
Hurricane for 1 would be great.
Yay! Black mana.
Can't do a Hurricane for much more than 1 with a life total of 4. Duress reveals nothing at all of any relevance.
Oh, good, because he has 2 more. He has 1 more.
And you can't cast it this turn anyway. That's the one consolation. Galta Primal Hunger coming along. Couple of blocks there. And there's the handshake. That's enough. Don Ravensway picking up the win. We saw him in round 2 with his mono blue storm list winning things. We saw him again here in this final round of the day, making it through to day 2. So we're going to have a little bit of a mix of different decks that we see in day 2. There's obviously, we've seen the power of the Turbo Fog list. It wasn't just a flash in the pan last weekend. It does seem to be one of the key players in the format. Congratulations, Raf. You picked a good deck for the Pro Tour, as if we didn't already know that. But that is the end of our day 1.